Good morning. I actually can see you. It's really nice. What exactly is a revolutionary? We all have ideas about that. We've seen hundreds and hundreds of images. Perhaps George Washington and the Founding Fathers is coming to your mind. Next, or Che Guevara, V.I. Lenin, or masses of people flooding into the streets, determined to make change. Well, for just about all of my career as a researcher and an activist, I've been studying what a revolutionary is and talking to people about it. And about 20 years ago, my colleagues and I made an unexpected discovery. We unearthed the ultimate revolutionary. Let me introduce you. This is my nephew, Tegan. He's 19 months old. He's quite adorable. I want to make the case to you today that babies are the best revolutionaries and that the implications for the rest of us are huge. What makes Tegan and all babies and toddlers revolutionary? Why do I call them that? Because they play every waking minute. They don't just play with toys and stuffed animals. They play with everything and everyone. They play, and we play along with them, and together we create who they are becoming. That's what's revolutionary about play. It creates something new out of what exists. A really good example of this is human language. Now, we're all hardwired for it, but there is no doubt that revolutionary play is what creates language users. Babies become speakers because they and we play with sounds, with rhymes, with words. Tegan was about a year old when he began to babble. His parents talked to him constantly. They pretended he could speak and that they understood each other. They played with language, and they created hundreds and hundreds of conversations every day. And we all know what happened. Tegan became a speaker, just as you and I did decades ago. So this early language taught me something about play in general. That it's not just fun, that it's not just flights of imaginative fantasy, that it's not even just how little kids learn the social roles that they'll grow into as they get older. When it's revolutionary, play is at the heart of all becomings. It is the best thing that we have for driving human development. Here's why. When we play, we go beyond ourselves. We do things without knowing how. We relate as who we are and as who we're becoming at the very same time. And we create something new out of what exists, something that didn't exist before. This playful way of being in the world is something that all of us at any age are capable of. But most of us stop. The reasons are very complex, but consider these. We're taught that there's a difference between work and play, and that what matters is work. We're taught there's a difference between learning and playing, and we all know what matters, right? Learning. We are constantly told who we are, and that limits who we can become. And we get obsessed with looking good and getting it right, and that stops us from growing. Without revolutionary play, we get stuck. Individuals get stuck, families get stuck, communities get stuck. And from where I stand, the whole world seems stuck in old roles, fossilized performances, and very destructive games. How does the world look stuck to you today, right now? Can we get out of this dire situation? Is there something we can do? Can we get unstuck? I think so. That's what I've learned from my own research and that of other play and performance theorists and workers. We've learned that to get unstuck, we have to support people to create revolutionary play, to allow people to not just be who they are, but other, beyond becoming. We discovered that this kind of play kickstarts growth in people who've stopped growing because of poverty, trauma, abuse, physical limitations, overwhelming stress, and all the other reasons that people stand still. When it's revolutionary, when we play as babies and caregivers do, it can reinitiate a love of learning, a wonder about the world, generate hope, enrich, encourage, and empower. All over the world, people are playing. They're creating environments for people who don't know each other, people who do know each other, to do something new together, to create. And many of these people are dealing with things that you couldn't think that they could play with because they're so serious. And they're playing with people that they couldn't imagine playing with because they fear or even hate them. Let me share some examples with you. These are a few of the 250 oncology nurses at a major teaching hospital in the Northeast. It might not surprise you to know that these nurses were burned out from experiencing illness, death, and sadness every day. They were emotionally closed down, they were very tense with each other, and they were in conflict with other hospital staff. The administration did a smart thing. They brought in a consulting firm called Performance of a Lifetime that specializes in play and performance. In the months of playing together, the nurses did all kinds of things they didn't know how to do. They played with illness, they played with mourning, they played with sadness, and they played with death. And after the program, they wanted to create something to share how they grew. So they put together a performance piece about their growth, and they presented it at an international conference. It's the opening scene of how the nurses were before they began the program. They're spaced out, doing their own thing, wandering around. One's playing basketball, one is cooking, one's embroidering. Very, very slowly, they begin to notice each other. They make eye contact and move a little closer. They move into pairs. They touch each other's arms or face. They begin to mirror each other, and they merge into one slow-motion ensemble. They end the scene by inviting the audience up on the stage to move with them. These nurses were able to break out of their usual roles. They could be emotional, share their grief, and support each other in this very incredibly difficult work. In other words, they could be human with each other, which for most of them is how come they became nurses in the first place. My next example is from China. Remind you of the 2008 earthquake in the Sichuan province. 70,000 people died. 500,000 more were injured. And 7 million people lost their homes. 2 years later, even as homes and schools and hospitals and entire towns were being rebuilt, people's lives were still in shatters. Children and adults were still dealing with the trauma of what they lost. An interesting thing happened. The largest NGO in China took a very unorthodox approach to giving aid. They knew that children spend all their time in school and when they're outside of school studying, and that they were already stressed, and that the trauma of the earthquake just added to that. So They brought me and my colleagues to the city of Dayang to teach primary school teachers how to play. The idea was for us to help them create a play break that they could use in their classrooms every single day. This is a group of teachers that just performed the play break that they created, a play break that incorporated ways of playing that we taught them and ways of playing that came back to them in a flood of memories. Now, these teachers, when we first met them, said to us, "We haven't played since we were 2 years old. We've completely forgotten how, and we're scared to try." They would not even look at each other in the eye. This is 2 days later. They're quite joyous. All of the 75 teachers transformed from very shy adults who were terrified at the idea of playing to playful adults who gave expression to a newfound confidence about playing with their children. They were very joyous at their transformation, telling us, "We did what we thought was impossible. We learned who we are through creating together." And the one that touches my heart the most, "Now I can truly support the children." My last example is how revolutionary play is intervening on the violence in poor communities and the hostile relationship between police and young people of color. It's taking place in New York City. It's a project called Operation Conversation, Cops and Kids. And it is a project of the All-Stars Project that the NYPD officially incorporated into the training of its police officers in 2011. This group of police and young people are creating an improv scene. It's an improv scene that has nothing to do with their lives, a scene that is all about something completely trivial, in this case, the family pet. Before this, they were walking in slow motion. They were making funny faces at each other, and they were talking in gibberish. After playing like this, after being silly and very awkward with each other, they sit down and talk to each other. They tell each other what's hard about being a cop and what's hard about being a kid. And they discover that what's hard is the same, worrying that they won't come home alive. They also tell each other how they want to be treated by the other. These cops and kids are creating new performances of themselves in their relationship. They can see each other in new ways, not in their cop and kid roles. It's playing together that gives them a glimpse of the human being underneath their respective uniforms, and also gives them more choices of how to act the next time they encounter each other in the streets. I have hundreds more examples of people playing, many of them with hard stuff, like these cops, kids, teachers, and nurses. The evidence is in. We can play with anything and anyone. And when we do, we create who we are becoming. Revolutionary play is how we discover and bring into being new possibilities for remaking our world. That's how I understand development, and that's the power of play. All power to the play revolutionaries. Thank you.